She burst into the restaurant, bruised and desperate. Her cop husband was just seconds behind her. She walked straight to the most dangerous table in the room and sat down beside a man who wasn't human. What she whispered changed everything. The Vampire King stood up, looked her husband in the eye, and said 2 words that made the entire room go silent. "She's mine." Blood always tasted like copper and fear. Sarah knew this because she'd been tasting her own for the last 3 hours. Her split lip was courtesy of her husband's wedding ring. The rain hammered down on 5th Street as she stumbled past closed stores. Her white waitress uniform was clinging to her skin like a second layer of shame. Most places were dark at 2 a.m., but up ahead, warm light spilled from a restaurant she'd never noticed before. Nocturne. Sarah didn't care that she'd never seen it open during her day shifts at the diner 2 blocks over. She didn't care that the windows were tinted black, or that expensive cars lined the street despite the late hour. She only cared that Marcus was 30 seconds behind her, and the door was unlocked. The moment she crossed the threshold, silence swallowed the storm. The restaurant was full, impossibly full for a Monday night in a city where most people were asleep. Men and women in expensive suits and designer dresses sat at candlelit tables. Their conversations were hushed. Their movements were too smooth, too graceful. The air smelled like wine and something else, something old and metallic that made Sarah's survival instinct scream. But louder than instinct was the sound of Marcus's police radio crackling outside. A hostess appeared. She had pale skin and dark eyes that reflected the candlelight like a cat's. "Ma'am, we're a private establishment. Reservation only." "Please," Sarah whispered, water dripping onto the polished floor. "I just need—" The door exploded open behind her. Marcus filled the doorway. 6'3" of rage stuffed into a police uniform. His badge caught the light. So did the gun on his hip, his hand hovering near it. "Sarah, get your ass out here now." Every head in the restaurant turned, not toward Marcus, toward the back corner where a single man sat alone at a table draped in black cloth. Sarah followed their gaze. He was the kind of handsome that didn't look real. Sharp cheekbones, black hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. He wore a 3-piece suit that probably cost more than her car, and he held a wine glass filled with something too dark to be Cabernet. But it was his eyes that made her breath catch. Pale gray, ancient, and currently fixed on her husband with the mild interest of a predator watching prey. "I said now, Sarah." Marcus's voice cracked through the quiet. She had 2 choices. Go back to Marcus and whatever he'd do to her in private, away from witnesses, or... Sarah's legs moved before her brain caught up. She walked straight past the frozen hostess, past tables where impossibly beautiful people watched with hungry eyes, and stopped at the black draped table. The man, and somehow she knew he was more than that, slowly lowered his wine glass. Up close, he was even more unsettling. His skin was too perfect. No pores, no imperfections. His stillness was absolute. But when he looked at her, really looked at her, something flickered in those gray eyes. Curiosity. Sarah slid into the chair beside him. Her wet uniform squeaked against the leather. Her voice came out barely above a whisper, but in the deadly silent room, everyone heard. "Please hide me." For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the man smiled. It was the kind of smile that made Sarah think of wolves in winter and things that went bump in the night. He rose from his chair with liquid grace, every eye in the room tracking his movement. "Officer, I believe you're causing a disturbance." Marcus's face went purple. "That's my wife. She's confused, probably drunk. She's sitting at my table." The man's tone didn't rise, but somehow it filled every corner of the restaurant. "Of her own free will, which makes her my guest." "I don't give a damn whose guest she is. Sarah, I'm counting to 3. I invoke sanctuary." The room exploded with whispers. The hostess actually gasped. A woman in a red dress at a nearby table dropped her wine glass and it shattered on the floor like a gunshot. Marcus froze. "What? Did you just—" "The sanctuary pact," the man continued, his hand resting lightly on the back of Sarah's chair. "Ancient law, older than your badge, officer. This woman has requested my protection and I have granted it. She is now under my ward. My smile sharpened. My name is Lucien Whale, and this is my domain. Sarah felt the shift in the air, like static electricity before a lightning strike. Marcus felt it too. His hand dropped away from his gun. Confusion and something else. Fear crossed his face. You can't, Marcus started. I can. I have. The pact is witnessed. Lucien gestured to the room. Every single person raised their glass in silent acknowledgement. She's mine now. The way he said mine sent ice down Sarah's spine, but it was a different kind of cold than Marcus's fists. This was the cold of a locked vault, of something unbreakable. Marcus's jaw worked. His eyes darted around the room, seeing something Sarah couldn't quite grasp. Finally, his gaze landed back on her, and the hatred there was pure. This isn't over, Sarah, not by a long shot. He turned and stormed out, the door slamming behind him hard enough to rattle the windows. The moment he was gone, the restaurant exhaled. Conversations resumed. Someone laughed. But Sarah couldn't move, couldn't breathe, because Lucien Whale was still standing beside her, and she was starting to understand what kind of restaurant this really was, what kind of people filled it, and what she'd just become. Lucien sat back down, picked up his wineglass, and studied her with those ancient gray eyes. Well then, that was unexpected. Tell me, little ward, do you have any idea what you've just done? Sarah's voice shook. I asked for help? No, his smile returned, sharp and knowing. You asked a vampire king to protect you from your husband. There's a difference. The room tilted. Vampire king. And he just called her his. By 4 a.m., Sarah's face was on every supernatural network from Boston to Miami. She sat in Lucien's private office above the restaurant, wrapped in a borrowed cashmere blanket that probably cost more than her monthly rent, watching him make phone calls in a language that sounded like Latin mixed with something darker. His voice never rose above conversational, but the tension in his shoulders told her everything. She'd broken something. Something big. The first call came at 3:47 a.m. Lucien listened for exactly 15 seconds before hanging up. The Crimson Court, a woman's voice asked from the doorway. Sarah jumped. The woman had appeared without a sound. Red hair, dressed in black tactical gear. Her eyes the same reflective quality Sarah had seen in everyone at the restaurant. Let me guess, Cassandra's throwing a tantrum? Cassandra says I violated the Treaty of 1847. Lucien set down his phone with careful precision. Apparently, granting sanctuary to a human without council approval is grounds for challenge. Since when does the Vampire King need council approval for anything? The woman's gaze slid to Sarah. No offense, honey, but you've started a political nightmare. Elena. Lucien's voice had a warning. What? It's true. The northern clans are already mobilizing. The European bloodlines called for an emergency session. And let's not forget the hunters. Sarah's stomach dropped. Hunters? Like vampire hunters? Oh, she doesn't know. Cute. Your husband, said Lucien, quietly, turning to face Sarah, has ties to a hunter organization. Old families who've been killing my kind for generations. We've had a truce, shaky but functional. Your sanctuary complicates that. The room spun. Marcus, the man who couldn't even remember to take out the trash, was connected to vampire hunters. Another phone buzzed. Lucien checked it, his expression darkening. It seems Officer Marcus Webb has filed an official missing person report. You're now a kidnapping victim. He's given statements to 3 news stations and contacted the FBI. What? She shot to her feet, blanket falling away. I'm right here. I left on my own. Doesn't matter. Elena said. His phone rang again. This time his jaw tightened as he answered. Marcus. How unexpected.
Sarah's blood turned to ice. She could hear her husband's voice through the speaker, cold and calculated in a way she'd never heard before. Lucien Vale. I've done my research. 17 properties in the city, all under different corporate names. Quite the operation you're running. Marcus paused. Here's what's going to happen. You return my wife within 24 hours, or I make one phone call. The Covenant will know you broke sanctuary protocol. The hunters will know you're harboring humans, and the feds will know exactly where to find your tax evasion. Is that a threat, officer? It's a promise. Marcus's voice dripped venom. You might be some big shot in your freaky underground world, but up here, you're just another immigrant with fake papers. I've already got the DA interested. Kidnapping, human trafficking, racketeering. Take your pick. Lucien's eyes flashed for just a moment. Your wife invoked sanctuary of her own free will. The pact is ancient law. Your law, not mine, Marcus laughed. Here's the thing, Your Majesty. I've also made some interesting friends. The Blackwood clan. They're very interested in meeting the humans stupid enough to sit at their table. Something about rare bloodlines and political leverage. They made me a generous offer. The call ended. Elena swore in what sounded like Russian. Blackwood? He went to Blackwood? Who's Blackwood? Sarah whispered. Rival vampire clan, Lucien said, his voice deadly calm. They've wanted my territory for 3 centuries. If they're backing your husband, he turned to face her fully, and for the first time since the restaurant, she saw genuine concern in his eyes. They'll use you to undermine my authority, challenge my right to rule. But I didn't mean... Intent doesn't matter in vampire politics. He moved toward her, and she forced herself not to flinch. You asked for my protection. In my world, protection means war, blood, centuries-old grudges brought into the light. He stopped just in front of her. Your husband isn't just an abusive cop. He's a pawn in a game older than your country. And now, so are you. The office door burst open. A man in an expensive suit stormed in. Another vampire, older looking, with silver streaks in his black hair. Lucien, the council demands explanation. You invoke sanctuary for a mortal. Do you have any idea what you've... He stopped, seeing Sarah. His nostrils flared. My God. Is that... Can you smell her blood? Marcus, back off. Elena stepped forward. She's untainted. The man, Marcus, confusingly, moved closer, his eyes widening. Pure bloodline? No compulsion markers, no vampire trace. How is that possible? Humans haven't been clean for decades. Lucien's hand shot out, stopping the other vampire mid-step. She's under my sanctuary. This is why Blackwood wants her. The silver-haired vampire breathed. Lucien, do you understand what she is? What her blood could mean for... Out! Lucien's voice cracked like thunder. The vampire fled. Sarah's hands shook. What did he mean? My blood? Lucien closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they held something that looked almost like regret. In a few hours, the sun rises. My court will gather to question my decision. Vampire factions will demand answers. Your husband will hold a press conference. And you, Sarah Webb, will learn exactly what you are, what you've always been. I'm just a waitress. No, Lucien said softly. You're a catalyst, and you've just set 2 worlds on fire. Outside, sirens began to wail. The underground court was nothing like Sarah imagined. No coffins, no cobwebs, just a massive chamber carved from bedrock beneath the city, lit by chandeliers that cast everything in amber light. Marble columns stretched toward a vaulted ceiling painted with scenes she didn't recognize. Battles between creatures with wings and fangs, humans cowering below. Lucien led her down a staircase that seemed to go on forever, Elena flanking her other side. She had been given clothes, a simple black dress that fit perfectly despite no one measuring her. Another unsettling thing in a growing list. Keep your eyes down, Elena whispered. Don't speak unless directly addressed. Don't accept food or drink from anyone but Lucien. And whatever you do, don't look them in the eye for more than 3 seconds. Why not? Because some of them will try to compel you, force their will into your mind. Elena's expression was grim. Lucien's protection only goes so far. Inside your head, you're on your own. The staircase opened into the chamber. Sarah's breath caught. 50 vampires stood in a semicircle around a raised dais. They wore everything from modern suits to what looked like Renaissance clothing, their ages ranging from teenagers to elderly, but all sharing that same predatory stillness, all watching her. Lucien's hand pressed gently against her lower back, guiding her forward. Steady. A woman stepped forward from the semicircle, tall, dark-skinned, wearing a gold dress that seemed to shimmer. Her presence commanded attention the same way Lucien's did. Power. Lucien Vale, her voice echoed through the chamber. You invoke your right to sanctuary without council consultation. You bring a mortal into sacred ground. Explain yourself. Lady Cassandra? Lucien's tone was respectful but firm. The Sanctuary Pact predates the Council by 6 centuries. It requires no permission, only witnesses. The pact was designed for our kind, another vampire shouted from the semicircle, a man with blonde hair and a British accent. Not for mortal playthings. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Lucien's hand tightened slightly on Sari's back. Sarah Webb invoked sanctuary under threat of imminent harm. The law is clear. The law is outdated. Cassandra moved closer, her eyes fixed on Sarah with disturbing intensity. We live in a modern world, Lucien, one where mortals have technology, weapons, and organizations dedicated to our extinction. Bringing one into our midst, especially one connected to hunters, is reckless. Then revoke the pact, Lucien said simply. Call for a vote. Change the law. But until you do, it stands, and so does she. Cassandra smiled, slow and dangerous. Oh, I don't want to revoke anything. I want to understand. She moved directly in front of Sarah, close enough that Sarah could see her pupils were slightly slit like a cat's. Look at me, child. Sarah's eyes met the vampire's. Against her better judgment, it felt like hooks sinking into her brain. Cassandra's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. You will tell me your true intentions. You will reveal what you're hiding. You will... The pressure shattered like glass. Cassandra stumbled backwards, shock flashing across her face. The entire chamber went silent. What? Cassandra's hand went to her temple. What did you just do? Nothing. I didn't do anything. Another vampire stepped forward, this one with silver hair, the same one from Lucien's office. My turn. Before anyone could stop him, his eyes locked onto Sarah's. Again, that invading presence. But this time, Sarah felt it clearly, like someone trying to shove their thoughts into her, and just like before, something in her blood pushed back hard. The silver-haired vampire gasped, blood trickling from his nose. Impossible, someone whispered. She's resisting compulsion. No human resists compulsion. Not without training. Not without... The bloodline, Cassandra finished, her shock transforming into something calculating. The chamber erupted. Vampires surged forward, their composed masks dropping. Sarah pressed back against Lucien, who positioned himself between her and the crowd like a shield. Enough. His voice carried power that made the chandelier shake. The vampires froze. She is under my protection. Anyone who touches her answers to me. Lucien, you can't possibly understand what you have here, Cassandra pleaded, though her eyes gleamed with ambition. The old blood hasn't walked among mortals for 3 centuries. Her lineage is none of your concern. It's everyone's concern, a younger vampire shouted. Do you know what her blood could do? 1 drop could cure blood madness, could strengthen weak lines, could make her a target for every vampire on the eastern seaboard. Lucien finished coldly. Which is precisely why this information doesn't leave this chamber? His eyes swept the assembly. Anyone who speaks of her bloodline outside these walls forfeits their life. Do I make myself clear? Tense silence. You can't protect her forever, Cassandra said softly. Word will spread. The Blackwood clan already knows she's special. Why else would the ally with her hunter husband? She stepped closer to Lucien. She glanced at Sarah, something almost like pity crossing her features. You asked a vampire king to hide you, child. You have no idea what you've unleashed.
A door at the far end of the chamber burst open. A vampire in tactical gear rushed in. "My lord, the Blackwood clan is moving. They've petitioned the Covenant for a challenge." Lucien went very still. "When?" "3 nights from now, full moon, traditional terms." The messenger swallowed. "They're demanding the ward as prize." The chamber exploded with voices. Sarah grabbed Lucien's arm. "What does that mean? What's a challenge?" He met her eyes, and for the first time since they'd met, she saw something that looked like fear. "It means," he said quietly, "your husband and his vampire allies just declared war, and if I lose, you become their property." Marcus Webb stood in front of 7 cameras, tears streaming down his face. "My wife is in danger," he choked out, his voice breaking perfectly. "Sarah is a victim. She's been manipulated by a man, Lucien Well, who runs what I can only describe as a cult. She's terrified, confused, and I just want her home safe." Sarah watched the press conference on Elena's tablet, her stomach twisting. The conference room where Marcus stood was packed with reporters, and behind him stood 3 other cops, all nodding sympathetically. He looked like a grieving husband, a hero trying to save his wife, not the man who'd put her in the hospital twice. "He's good," Elena muttered. They were in Lucien's safe house, a penthouse apartment with blackout curtains and security that would make the Secret Service jealous. Lucien was in his day chamber, sleeping off the sunrise. Vampires couldn't function in daylight, which made this the most dangerous time. "I'll give him that. He's really good." On screen, a reporter asked, "Officer Webb, what evidence do you have that your wife is being held against her will?" Marcus pulled out his phone, swiping through photos. "These were taken 3 months ago. Sarah, smiling, happy. And this," he showed another image. "This was 2 weeks ago. Look at her eyes. She's terrified." Sarah recognized the photo. She'd been terrified, but not of Lucien. She'd been terrified because Marcus had just thrown a plate at her head. "The FBI is investigating," Marcus continued. "We've identified at least 17 properties connected to Vale's operation. We believe he's involved in human trafficking, money laundering, and possibly worse." He looked directly into the camera. "Sarah, if you're watching this, I love you. Come home. I forgive you. We can work through this." Elena turned off the tablet. "The FBI is actually investigating. Lucien's lawyers are already on it, but this is going to get messy." "He doesn't love me," Sarah whispered. "He's never loved me." "I know, honey, but everyone else doesn't." Elena's phone buzzed. She checked it, her expression darkening. "We've got movement. 3 hunter families just arrived in the city. They're claiming they're here to consult on the case." "Consult?" "Kill vampires." Elena stood, moving to the window. Even through the blackout curtains, Sarah could see the tension in her shoulders. "Your husband isn't just weaponizing the media, he's called in the cavalry." A text came through on Sarah's own phone, a burner Lucien had given her. It was from a number she didn't recognize. "You're playing a dangerous game, Sarah. Lucien can't protect you during the day. Come home now and I'll make sure this ends quietly. Refuse and people will die. Your choice. M." Her hand shook. "Elena, he's threatening." "I know. We intercepted it. He's also meeting with someone right now. Lucien's day spies are following him." Day spies? Humans loyal to Lucien. Not everyone in this war has fangs. Elena pulled up another screen on her tablet. "Look." The footage was grainy, shot from across a parking lot. Marcus stood beside his police cruiser, talking to a man in an expensive suit. The man was tall, blonde, and even through the poor-quality video, she could see he wasn't entirely human. His movements were too fluid. "That's Victor Blackwood," Elena said quietly, "second in command of the Blackwood clan, one of the oldest vampires in North America." Sarah watched as Marcus handed Victor a folder. They talked for several minutes, Victor nodding, occasionally laughing. Then Marcus said something that made Victor's expression shift to something hungry. "What are they talking about?" Sarah asked. "We have a lip reader working on it, but I can guess." Elena zoomed in on Victor's face. "Your husband is promising you, specifically your blood. If Blackwood helps him undermine Lucien's authority, Marcus gets you back, and Blackwood gets access to old blood for his clan. But I'm under sanctuary, which is why they're planning a challenge. If Lucien loses, sanctuary breaks, you become disputed property. And in vampire law, disputed property goes to the victor, which would be Blackwood. The reality crashed down on Sarah. She wasn't just caught between her husband and a vampire king. She was a prize in a game she didn't understand, with rules she'd never learned. Another phone buzzed. Elena's this time. She answered, listened, then hung up. We've got a problem. Marcus just filed a restraining order against Lucien, claiming he's a threat to public safety. The judge approved it. If Lucien goes anywhere near you in public, he gets arrested. How is that even? He used the FBI investigation as evidence, made it look like Lucien a dangerous criminal. Elena started pacing. This is smart, really smart. He's boxing us in. Can't use vampire powers against a cop without proving everything he's saying. Can't fight back legally without exposing what we really are. Can't hide you forever because the press is making you the story of the year. Sarah felt the walls closing in. What do? We wait for Lucien to wake up, and we hope his plan is better than Marcus's. Elena checked her watch. 4 more hours until sunset. A lot can happen in 4 hours. As summoning disaster, Elena's phone rang again. This time her face paled. What? Sarah asked. The Hunter families. They're not waiting for FBI approval. They just raided one of Lucien's properties. 3 vampires were inside, sleeping. They're dead. Staked during daylight. Oh my God. Your husband just escalated this to war. Elena pulled out a gun. Not a regular gun, but something that looked modified, probably for killing vampires. Marcus didn't just file reports and cry on TV. He gave hunters the location of a safe house. He murdered 3 of Lucien's people. The door to Lucien's day chamber opened. He stood in the doorway, still weak from the sun that blazed outside, but his eyes were pure silver rage. Wake the others, he said quietly. We're moving up the challenge. If Marcus wants war, he'll get war. Lucien, it's still daylight, Elena started. I know what time it is. He looked at Sarah, and she saw something in his expression she hadn't seen before. Vulnerability. When I invoked sanctuary, I promised you protection. I failed 3 of my own today. I won't fail you. What are you going to do? Sarah whispered. Lucien's smile was sharp as broken glass. Your husband wants to play by human rules. Fine, I'll play by human rules. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling a press conference of my own, and I'm going to tell them exactly who Officer Marcus Webb really is. Outside, sirens walled again, but this time they were heading away from them, towards Marcus. The emergency council meeting happened at midnight in the same underground chamber where Sarah had first been presented. But this time, the atmosphere was pure poison. 50 vampires stood divided, literally. Half the room clustered on one side, the other half opposite, with Lucien at the center and Sarah standing beside him. She could feel their eyes on her, some calculating, some hateful, some hungry. 3 of our kind are dead, a vampire with a French accent spat, slaughtered in their sleep because of her. Marcus Webb acted alone, Lucien started. Marcus Webb acts because she exists. Another vampire stepped forward, a woman with platinum hair and cold eyes. Before she walked through your door, we had peace, uneasy but functional. Now we have FBI investigations, hunter raids, and a challenge that could cost you everything. Cassandra stood on the left side of the room, arms crossed, watching. She hadn't spoken yet, which somehow made her more threatening. Enough, Lucien's voice cut through the chamber. Sarah Webb is under my protection. Your protection is killing us, a younger vampire shouted. The hunters know where we sleep now. How long before they hit another house, another dozen of us?
Then we strike back, Lucien said coldly. Against humans? Cassandra finally spoke, her voice silk over steel. And violate the covenant? Give them exactly the excuse they need to declare open war. She stepped into the center of the room. Lucien, I respect you. Your line is ancient, your power unmatched. But this girl has destabilized everything we've built. The Blackwood challenge is in 3 nights. If you lose, she becomes theirs anyway. If you win, the hunters will escalate. She paused. There's a third option. The room went silent. Say it, Lucien said quietly. Revoke sanctuary. Turn her over to her husband. Let the mortals handle their own mess. Cassandra's eyes flicked to Sarah. It's not personal, child. It's survival. Murmurs of agreement rippled through half the room. The covenant would see it as good faith, Pierre added. Proof we're not harboring humans. The FBI investigation would die. The hunters would back off. And Sarah would die, Lucien said flatly. Marcus Webb will kill her the moment she's back in his custody. That's not our problem, someone muttered. Sarah felt ice in her veins. These were creatures who'd lived for centuries, who'd seen empires rise and fall. Her life was a blip to them, insignificant. Besides, a male vampire with dark skin spoke up. Thomas, one of the few who'd been quiet until now. Her blood is too valuable to waste. If we must revoke sanctuary, at least let us make use of her. One vial could cure blood madness, could strengthen bloodlines, could... She's not a blood bag, Elena snarled. She's a resource, Thomas countered. And if she's going to cause this much chaos, shouldn't we at least benefit from it? The room exploded into argument, half shouting to revoke sanctuary, a quarter demanding they use her blood, the rest arguing for different solutions. Sarah stood frozen, listening to vampires debate her life like she was furniture. Then she noticed something. Pierre kept glancing at his phone, quick, subtle checks that most wouldn't catch, but Sarah had spent 3 years reading Marcus's moods, learning when he was hiding something. And Pierre had that same tell, the same nervous energy. "You've been texting someone," Sarah said loudly. The room went quiet. Pierre's eyes snapped to her. "Excuse me? Your phone. You've checked it 6 times in the last 10 minutes. Sarah's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. "Who are you talking to? How dare you? Show us your phone," Lucien said softly. Pierre's face went carefully blank. "This is absurd. I don't answer to a mortal. You answer to me." Lucien moved forward. "Your phone, now." "I have a right to privacy." Elena moved faster than Sarah could track, snatching the phone from Pierre's jacket. She swiped through it, her expression darkening. "Oh, you backstabbing son of a..." "What is it?" Cassandra demanded. Elena turned the phone around. On the screen was a text thread with an unknown number, but the messages were clear. "Meeting still on for tonight? Yes, Lucien's distracted. The girl will be easy to take. Blackwood will honor our agreement. You'll have territory once Vale falls." The chamber erupted. "Traitor!" Thomas lunged for Pierre, but other vampires held him back. Pierre laughed, cold and bitter. "You're all fools. Lucien is finished. The challenge is a formality. Blackwood has already won." His eyes fixed on Sarah. "And you, little mortal, will be Victor's personal blood supply. He's already promised me a taste." Lucien moved like lightning. One moment he was across the room. The next, his hand was around Pierre's throat. How many others? "Enough," he choked out. "Enough to know that your precious sanctuary is a joke. She's not worth dying for. Let me be very clear." Lucien's voice was death itself. "Anyone who sides with Blackwood forfeits their life. Anyone who touches her forfeits worse." He released Pierre, who collapsed. "Get him out of my sight. Put him in the holding cells until I decide what to do with him." 2 vampires dragged Pierre away, still laughing. Cassandra stepped forward. The girl was right, if she hadn't noticed. She looked at Sarah with new respect. "You have sharp eyes, child." "I've had practice," Sarah said quietly. "Marcus used to text his other women, same tells." "How many others are compromised?" Lucien asked the room. "If Pierre could be bought, who else?" Silence. Uncomfortable, guilty silence. "This is why we fight," Lucien said, "not because Sarah Webb is convenient, not because her blood is valuable, because if we abandon sanctuary, if we let fear turn us into cowards, we deserve to fall." He looked around the chamber. "Marcus Webb and Victor Blackwood want us divided. They want us scared. They want us to turn on each other." His hand found Sarah's shoulder. "This woman had the courage to ask for help. The least we can do is have the courage to give it." Thomas stepped forward. "I stand with you, my lord." Elena raised her hand. "Always." Slowly, others followed. Not all of them, maybe half the room, but it was enough. Cassandra was the last to speak. "The challenge is still coming. This doesn't change that." I know, Lucien said. And if you lose? He won't. His eyes met Sarah's. I have something worth fighting for now. As the meeting dissolved, Sarah pulled Lucien aside. Thank you for not giving up on me. You saved yourself tonight, he said quietly. You saw what I missed. That kind of instinct? He smiled, and for the first time, it looked genuine. Maybe you're not so helpless after all. 2 nights until the challenge, Elena said. We need to prepare. We will. Lucien looked toward the exit where Pierre had been dragged. But first, we find out how deep this betrayal goes. Sarah felt the shift. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She was part of this war, and somehow that was more terrifying than anything Marcus had ever done. The attack came at 2 a.m., exactly 24 hours before the challenge. Sarah was in the restaurant, Nocturne, helping Elena inventory blood supplies in the back room, when the front windows exploded inward. Not shattered, exploded, like someone had thrown grenades. Elena tackled her behind a steel counter as gunfire erupted. Not normal gunfire. The sound was wrong, sharper, followed by screams from the dining room. Sarah recognized those screams. Vampires. Wooden bullets, Elena hissed, pulling out her modified gun. They came prepared. Through the chaos, Sarah heard Marcus's voice over a megaphone. Lucien Vale, this is the police. We have a warrant for your arrest. Send out Sarah Webb, and nobody else has to die. He brought hunters, Elena said, peering around the counter. I count at least 15, half in police uniforms, half in tactical gear. Her face went pale. They have a purifier. What's a purifier? A weapon that burns vampire blood. If it hits you, you don't heal. You just burn from the inside. Elena's hands shook. Where's Lucien? As if answering, the temperature in the restaurant dropped 20 degrees in an instant. The lights went out. Every single one. In the darkness, Sarah heard Marcus again, less confident now. Turn on your flashlights. Stay in formation. Beams of light cut through the black. Searching. They found nothing. Then the screaming started. A hunter near the door fired into the shadows. His muzzle flash illuminated something. A shape, dark and liquid, moving along the walls like living smoke. His gun clicked empty. Before he could reload, the shadow wrapped around him and yanked him into the darkness. His scream cut off with a wet crunch. Open fire! Marcus yelled. Light it up! Gunfire erupted again, wooden bullets tearing through tables and walls. But Lucien wasn't there. He was everywhere and nowhere, a predator older than their grandparents' grandparents. And he was done playing by rules. A hunter's flashlight beam caught him for just a moment. Lucien stood on the ceiling, defying gravity, his eyes pure silver, his smile showing fangs that seemed too long to be real. Then he dropped like a stone onto 2 hunters below, moving so fast he was just a blur of black suit and crimson spray. Fall back, someone screamed. Hold the line, Marcus countermanded. He's just one. Lucien appeared behind Marcus, moving through shadows like they were doorways. His hand closed around a corrupt police cop's throat, one of the men who'd stood behind Marcus at the press conference. You came into my domain. Lucien's voice echoed from everywhere, layered and ancient. Broke my sanctuary, murdered my people. He lifted the cop off the ground with one hand. He gurgled, trying to aim his gun. Lucien caught his wrist and twisted. The bone snapped with a sound like a tree branch breaking. Marcus spun, firing his service weapon directly at Lucien's head. The bullet passed through shadow and hit the wall behind him. You're not bulletproof, Vale. Marcus's voice cracked with fear. You're just a...
Lucien materialized in front of him, so close their faces were inches apart. Just a what, Officer Webb? Just a monster. His smile was terrible. You have no idea what monsters really are. He moved through the room like death itself. Hunters fired, but he was always somewhere else. Behind them, above them, flowing through shadows that shouldn't exist. Elena joined the fight, her modified weapon taking down 2 hunters who got too close to the back rooms. Other vampires emerged from hiding. Thomas, Cassandra's people, even some who'd argued against Sarah in the council. Faced with an actual threat, the court united. But it was Lucien who made the real statement.
He caught the purifier, the weapon that burned vampire blood, and crushed it in his bare hand, the blessed silver burning his palm. He didn't flinch. Instead, he turned to the hunters holding it and smiled. "You want to know what true power looks like?" Shadows erupted from him like a bomb blast, spreading across the restaurant, snuffing out every flashlight, every muzzle flash, every source of light. In the pure darkness, Sarah could only hear the wet sounds of combat, the screams, the pleading. When the lights flickered back on 3 minutes later, it was over. 15 hunters lay on the ground, some unconscious, some groaning, some very still. Marcus was pinned against a wall by shadows that had solidified into something like chains, his gun on the floor, his face sheet white. Lucien stood in the center of the restaurant, his suit torn, blood, his and theirs, staining his clothes. His hand was still smoking from the purifier burn. Behind him, a dozen vampires stood ready, eyes glowing, fangs bared. "I could kill you," Lucien said, to Marcus, his voice soft now, which somehow made it worse. "I could tear out your throat and let you bleed out on my floor. I could make you one of us, trap you in an eternal life knowing you'd failed." He stepped closer. "But I won't. Do you know why?" Marcus couldn't speak. Too terrified. "Because death would be mercy, and you don't deserve mercy." Lucien gestured to the carnage. "This is your doing. These men, your fellow officers, your hunter friends, they followed you here. They died because of you, because you couldn't let your wife go." "She's my—" Marcus started. Lucien's hand shot out, gripping Marcus's jaw. "She was never yours. She is under sanctuary. And if you or your allies ever breach my domain again, I won't be so kind." He released Marcus, who slept. "The challenge is tomorrow night. Victor Blackwood wants to fight for her. Fine. But this," he gestured to the destroyed restaurant, the bodies, "this ends now." He turned to the conscious hunters. "Go. Tell your families what happened here. Tell them the Vampire King showed restraint tonight, but that restraint has limits." The hunters scrambled to their feet, dragging their wounded with them. Marcus stumbled after them, casting one last look at Sarah, who stood in the doorway with Elena. "This isn't over," Marcus mouthed. The shadows around Lucien pulsed. "Get out." They ran. As the last hunter disappeared into the night, Lucien finally sagged. Elena caught him, helping him to a chair. The burn on his hand was worse than Sarah had thought. Blackened flesh, silver burns spreading up his arm. "You're hurt," Sarah said, moving to him. "I'll heal," he looked at his ruined restaurant. Shattered windows, bullet holes, blood on every surface. "But they'll come at us differently now. Harder." "You sent a message," Cassandra said, emerging from the shadows. She was untouched, having fought with clinical precision. "Both worlds now know sanctuary stands." "At what cost?" Lucien asked, quietly. "At whatever cost necessary," Cassandra replied. "The challenge is tomorrow. Rest while you can." She looked at Sarah. "Both of you." As vampires began cleaning up the carnage, Sarah sat beside Lucia. His hand was still smoking, the silver burn refusing to heal like normal wounds did. "Thank you," she whispered, "for protecting me, for protecting this." He met her eyes, and for once the ancient vampire looked tired, human almost. "Tomorrow," he said, "I face Victor Blackwood for the right to keep you safe. If I lose, you need to run. Alana will help you. There are places even vampires can't reach. I'm not running." "Sarah, I asked you to hide me. You did. Now I'm asking you to let me stand beside you." She held his gaze. "Whatever happens tomorrow, we face it together." For the first time since she'd met him, Lucien smiled. Not the predatory grin, but something real. "Together," he agreed. Outside, dawn was still 2 hours away, but the real battle was just beginning. Sarah found him on the rooftop 2 hours before dawn. Lucien stood at the edge of the building looking out over the city. His burned hand hung at his side, still smoking faintly. He changed clothes, simple black pants and shirt. No jacket, no kingly armor. Just a man who looked tired. She almost turned back. He clearly wanted to be alone, but something made her stay. "You should be sleeping," he said without turning around. "So should you." Sarah moved closer, careful not to startle him. "Your hand? Will heal eventually." He flexed his fingers, wincing. "Silver burns take time. Small price to pay." "For what? Protecting me?" Sarah felt something snap inside her. Lucien, people died tonight. Your restaurant is destroyed. You're hurt, all because I sat at your table. Yes, the simple acknowledgement hit harder than any excuse would have. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself against the cold wind. I didn't ask for this, any of this. I know. He finally turned to face her. Without the shadows, without the power display, he looked different, older. The weight of centuries visible in his eyes. You lived with Marcus Webb for 3 years. You know what monsters look like. Human monsters wear badges and wedding rings. They smile while they break you. My kind. We're honest about what we are. You killed people tonight. I killed hunters who invaded my domain with intent to murder. His voice was steady, factual. I killed men who spent their lives staking vampires in their sleep. I killed corrupt officers who enabled your husband's abuse for years. He paused. Would you prefer I'd let them kill you? Kill Elena, Thomas, Cassandra's people? Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to say there was another way, but she had seen Marcus tonight. The calculation in his eyes, the pleasure in causing chaos. There was no reasoning with that. I'm not judging you, she said quietly. I'm just trying to understand. You could have let me go, revoked sanctuary. Half your court wanted you to. More than half, if we're being honest. They're not wrong, you know. You are a liability. Your blood makes you a target. Your husband makes you a weapon. And yet he was quiet for a long moment, studying his burned hand. Do you know how old I am? No. 473 years. I was born in 1552, turned in 1575. I've seen empires fall. I've watched humans go from swords to nuclear weapons. I've loved, lost, killed, and ruled. And he looked up at her. And in all those centuries, do you know what I've never done? Sarah shook her head. I've never had someone look at me without fear or calculation. Everyone wants something. Power, protection, blood, favor. Even my inner court sees me as a king first, person second. But you sat at my table because you were desperate and terrified. Not of me, of the man who was supposed to love you. I'm scared of you now, Sarah admitted. After tonight. Good! The word surprised her. You should be scared. I'm dangerous, ancient. I've done terrible things to survive. He stood, moving closer. But I've never lied to you, and I won't start now. The violence you saw tonight, that's who I am. That's what I'm capable of when something I care about is threatened. Why? The question burst out of her. I'm nobody, just a waitress with bad taste in men. Lucien laughed. Actually laughed, sharp and genuine. Just a waitress with old blood running through her veins who resists vampire compulsion? Who spotted a traitor when my entire council missed it? He tilted his head. You're observant, brave, stubborn. You survived 3 years with a monster and still had the courage to ask a stranger for help. That wasn't courage, that was desperation.
Courage and desperation looked the same in the moment. He reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, and gently touched her shoulder with his burned hand, but he didn't pull away from the contact. I've protected many people over the centuries. Most cower, some scheme. Few ever challenge me the way you do. I challenge you. You confronted me on a rooftop about violence. You sat in my council and exposed a traitor. You refused to run when I gave you an out. His smile turned genuine. You treat me like a person, not a king. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Sarah felt tears building. I don't know how to do this, be part of your world. I'm a waitress. I know how to dodge flying plates and hide bruises and lie to ER doctors. I don't know politics or vampire law or... Sarah. He waited until she met his eyes. You've been surviving impossible situations your entire adult life. This is just a different kind of impossible. What if you lose tomorrow? The challenge. Then you run. Elena has exit plans. That's not what I meant. Sarah wiped her eyes angrily. What happens to you if you lose? Something shifted in Lucian's expression. Surprise, maybe. Like the question itself was unexpected. I don't lose. But if you do, then Victor Blackwood becomes Vampire King of the Eastern Territory. My people scatter or bend the knee, and he trailed off. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. The words hung between them, honest and raw. Lucian stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, he smiled. Not the predatory grin or the political mask, but something real and almost vulnerable. When this started, he said softly, I invoked sanctuary because it was my right. Ancient law. A game piece moved on a board centuries old. He touched her face, gentle, despite the burned, blackened flesh of his hand. But somewhere between your husband's threats and Pierre's betrayal and tonight's raid, it stopped being about law. What's it about now? You asked me to hide you. I'm trying to keep that promise. His thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. And for the first time in 400 years, I actually care if I succeed. The confession settled between them, huge and fragile. Tomorrow, Sarah whispered, we face Victor together. Together, Lucian agreed. They stood on the rooftop as dawn approached. Two people from impossible worlds finding something neither expected. Trust. Below them, the city awoke up, and somewhere in it, Marcus and Victor Blackwood prepared for war. But for this moment, on this rooftop, Sarah and Lucian weren't ward and king, they were just two people who decided not to face the darkness alone. The Covenant Hall was packed with every vampire faction on the eastern seaboard. Sarah stood beside Lucian on the main floor, surrounded by hundreds of immortal beings who'd come to witness the challenge. The hall was ancient, stone walls covered in centuries of carved names, victors and vanquished alike. Chandeliers cast everything in amber and shadow. Victor Blackwood stood opposite them, tall and blonde, with Marcus beside him in a new suit that probably cost more than Sarah's wedding. Her husband looked smug, confident. He'd cleaned up well for his vampire masters. At the center, an elder vampire named Constantine presided, older than anyone in the room, his authority absolute. We are gathered for a challenge, Constantine's voice echoed through the hall. Victor Blackwood of the Blackwood clan challenges Lucian's right to sanctuary over the mortal Sarah Webb. State your case. Victor stepped forward, smooth and practiced. My lords and ladies, the Sanctuary Pact was created to protect our kind from persecution, to shield vampires seeking refuge. He gestured to Sarah. This woman is human, connected to hunters. Her very existence here violates the spirit of the pact. Murmurs of agreement rippled through some factions. Furthermore, Victor continued, recent blood analysis confirms she carries the old blood lineage. Such bloodlines are considered supernatural assets under the Covenant Treaty of 1721. As such, she cannot be classified as fully human. She is unclaimed supernatural property, which makes her eligible for acquisition. Sarah's blood ran cold. They'd found a loophole. Acquisition. Lucian's voice was dangerous, quiet. She's not property. Under the 1721 treaty, she is, Victor smiled, which means your sanctuary claim is void. She requires proper supernatural guardianship, which I am prepared to provide. He pulled out documentation, actual legal papers. I've filed the proper petitions. The council has reviewed them. Unless you can prove she's fully human with no supernatural classification, sanctuary doesn't apply. The hall erupted in debate. Sarah felt the ground shifting beneath her. They'd outmaneuvered Lucian through centuries-old law. Constantine raised his hand for silence. Lucian Vale, response. Lucian started to speak, but Sarah grabbed his arm. Wait. She stepped forward, her heart hammering. Hundreds of vampire eyes fixed on her, the mortal who dared address the Covenant. My lords and ladies, her voice shook but held, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a waitress. But I was married to a cop for 3 years, and I learned a few things about how people twist laws to get what they want. The mortal speaks out of turn, Victor started. Let her speak, Constantine said, curious. Sarah took a breath. You're citing the 1721 treaty, but that treaty includes a provision, Article 7, I believe, about consent. Supernatural assets can only be acquired with consent or through lawful challenge of existing guardianship. She looked at Victor. I never consented to your guardianship, and Lucian's sanctuary claim came first, which makes him my guardian. You can't challenge sanctuary by claiming I'm property. You have to challenge his right to be my guardian. She's correct, Cassandra's voice rang out from the crowd. The 1721 treaty is clear on custodial challenges. Sarah wasn't done. But here's the interesting part, Mr. Blackwood. You're not just challenging sanctuary. You've been colluding with my husband, a hunter, with active ties to organizations that kill vampires. She looked at Constantine. I believe that's a violation of the covenant itself, conspiring with hunters against another vampire clan. The hall went dead silent. Victor's face hardened. You have no proof. Actually, we do. Elena stepped forward, holding Pierre's confiscated phone. Text messages, meeting records, financial transactions. Victor Blackwood has been funding Marcus Webb's hunter operations in exchange for my delivery. She looked at Constantine. That's not a challenge. That's treason. The elder vampire's expression turned to stone. Victor Blackwood, is this true? I was working within the law. You armed hunters. You gave them vampire safe house locations. 3 of my people died because of intelligence you provided. Victor's mask cracked. They were weak. This clan has grown soft under your rule, Vale. We need strength, not sentiment over mortals with convenient blood. So you admit it, Constantine said quietly. I did what was necessary, Victor snarled, and I'd do it again. This council is filled with cowards who bow to a king who protects humans over his own kind. Marcus, sensing the shift, tried to back away. Victor's hand shot out, grabbing him. And this one, your precious husband, Sarah Webb, he promised me you'd cooperate once I had you, said you were weak, easily controlled. Let me go, Marcus struggled. You're a loose end, a human who knows too much about vampire politics. His hand moved faster than Marcus could react, snapping his neck with a wet crack.
Marcus's body dropped to the floor, dead. Sarah stared at her husband's corpse. She should feel something. Grief, horror, relief. Instead, she felt empty. He'd tried to kill her, use her, sell her, and in the end, his own allies had disposed of him. Blackwood, Constantine's voice boomed, you are found guilty of covenant violation, conspiracy with hunters, murder of a human witness under protection. He nodded to the shadows. Execute the sentence. Victor tried to run. He made it 3 steps before Lucian was on him. It wasn't a fight. It was an execution. Lucian moved with centuries of rage and power, every blow calculated, brutal. Victor's clan members who'd stood with him tried to intervene. Cassandra's people cut them down. Thomas and Elena joined. The hall became a battlefield for exactly 90 seconds. When the dust settled, Victor Blackwood and 12 of his inner circle lay dead. The rest of his clan knelt, heads bowed in submission. The challenge is answered, Constantine declared. Sanctuary stands. Sarah Webb remains under Lucian Vale's protection. He looked at the gathered vampires. Let this be remembered. The covenant is law, and law applies to all. The hall emptied slowly, factions filing out, whispers spreading. Marcus's body was removed. No ceremony, no respect, just another casualty of games he didn't understand. Sarah stood in the center of the now empty hall, Lucian beside her. His suit was torn again, blood spattered, but his eyes were clear. It's over, he said quietly. Is it? Sarah looked around at the ancient hall, the names carved into stone. Your world. I changed it, didn't I? You did. Lucian smiled, tired but genuine. One whispered plea, please hide me, and you set 2 worlds on fire. I'm sorry. Don't be. He took her hand, his healed hand, the burn finally gone. You exposed corruption, revealed traitors, forced us to remember what sanctuary actually means. His thumb brushed her knuckles. You changed the balance of power just by refusing to be a victim. Sarah looked at Marcus's blood on the floor, then at Lucian. What happens now? Now you're officially under my protection, my ward, part of my court. He paused. If you want to be. And if I don't, then I help you disappear. New identity, new life. Far from vampires and hunters and politics. His expression was open, honest. Your choice, Sarah. It's always been your choice. She thought about it. A normal life, away from all this. But she never had normal. And somehow standing beside a vampire king felt more honest than anything she'd known. I choose to stay, she said. Lucian's smile could have lit the entire hall.
Welcome to the court. Fair warning, it only gets stranger from here. I think I can handle strange. Sarah squeezed his hand. I sat at a vampire's table and asked a king to hide me. How much stranger can it get? His laugh echoed through the ancient hall. You'd be surprised. They walked out together, past carved names of forgotten battles, into a world that would never be quite the same. All because a terrified waitress had whispered 2 words to a stranger. And he'd said, yes.